Nero Claudius. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, Nero Claudiusu Caesaru Augustus Germanicusu, class name Saber, Seba, is the Saber class servant available to be chosen by Hakuno Kishinami in the Moon Cell Holy Grail War in Fate/Extra and Fate/Extra CCC. She is one of the servants of Ritsuka Fujimaru of the Grand Order's Conflicts of Fate/Grand Order. Identity: the 5th Roman Emperor. She had the reputation of a notorious tyrant whose rule was made up of schemes and poison as she oppressed all religious forces, especially Christians, and the Roman Senate during the period from 50 to 60 AD. It is believed in one theory that the Book of Revelation was written as a reaction against said oppression. She was regarded in the same light as the devil, as the assumed Hebrew pronunciation of her name as an emperor, Nero Caesar, being pronounced as Nrvnqsr, equates with the number of the beast. This name and the Beast of Babylon refers to Rome itself, and it is not an alias given to her as an individual. History: Nero's father was Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, cousin of the 4th Emperor, Claudius, and her mother, Julia Augusta Agrippina, was the younger sister of Caligula. Because Nero's father was considered to be a weak man, Nero was barred from succeeding to the throne. Agrippina eventually remarried to Emperor Claudius, Agrippina's uncle, and convinced him to adopt Nero as his heir, leading Nero down the path to becoming emperor by her own evil designs, but started by her own mother's debauchery. Agrippina, through her plotting and manipulating, pressured Claudia Octavia, Claudius's daughter and Nero's stepsister, to marry Nero. Nero's relatives resented her illegitimate birthright and relations became strained. Nero had more affection for the nameless masses than her relatives. During her youth, Nero was revered as a very competent judge who brought in several important lawsuits with her fairness and efficiency, though Claudius had forbidden her from doing so due to her young age. Nero eventually succeeded her stepfather after Agrippina murdered Claudius in the year 54 AD. She was enthroned emperor at the age of 17, which would have been extremely difficult with her origins. After claiming the throne, Nero gave out money to all citizens in celebration. She then abolished all indirect taxes. Predictably, the public adored Nero's generosity. Nero attempted to reform a depraved government and the corrupt Senate, but her reforms were stalled and met with hostility. Conflicts with the Senate erupted when Nero tried to unify the Roman Empire with some troublesome provinces. In contrast, Nero boasted tremendous popularity from the citizens, thanks to her generous policies. Her care for diplomacy caused Britannia's relations in Rome to improve during later years, essentially making her the person who built the opportunity for the legend of King Arthur to be born. She was also highly praised by Persia, which led to Rome being considered the country of Nero by Persia after her death. Nero had to bicker between a corrupt Senate and her predatory mother, who made policies in self-interest. Agrippina only saw Nero as a tool to become the mother of the emperor. Conflicts with her mother became more pronounced at this time. As a result, Nero hired an assassin to end her mother's life before she could deal with a troublesome Senate. But the assassination failed, and the only thing she could do was cut her mother down publicly, proclaiming that her own mother tried to poison her. The year was 59 AD, that was the year that Nero's reputation as a tyrant was cemented. Nero states that since that day, she has been afflicted with headaches. Nero suffered from chronic hysteria, a result from constantly using a silver cup. Nero had been poisoned as a child, so as not to defy her mother she was given the antidote in tandem. When her mother died, she also took the antidote with her to the grave, so Nero lapsed into a fevered delirium. Nero's life then took a radical shift after her ascension. Nero's wife, Octavia, committed suicide. Her younger stepbrother was murdered in order to secure her influence and then drove her sole mentor, the philosopher Seneca, to suicide. Seneca's death affected Nero deeply. She considered him a father figure. According to Nero, she told him that she would forgive him over and over again, but Seneca was skeptical of Nero's word and he ended his life in Nero's house. It pained Nero that Seneca disbelieved her words. Through her selfish actions, Nero was a monster to her relatives, but she boasted popularity with the masses. She established the Nero Festival in 59 or 60 AD, which was an athletic conference that took after the Greek Olympics and happened once every 5 years. She opened 3 fields for music, gymnastics, and horse riding and openly participated in the events herself. During July 1964 AD, there was a large conflagration that occurred to the extent of reducing Rome to ashes. The victims were contained to a bare minimum thanks to Nero's swift and adequate response as an administrator, and she earned immense popularity with the citizens by thoroughly carrying out her subsequent pledges. these measures are highly praised as effective measures that exhausted the bounds of human intellect even by the many historians who criticize her. She later established the Domus Aurea theater designed by herself. She was eventually driven out of her position during a revolt in 69 AD, led by Vindex in Gallia. At first, Nero ignored the situation, perhaps she still trusted Vindex, the inciter of the rebellion. More likely she was suffering from despair and she wished for the situation to go away. 2 years later, Vindex would incite another rebellion and by then the Senate had enough with Nero. The Senate was so displeased with Nero's mishandling of the revolt that they called her a traitor and she was forced to escape from Rome. Nero was convinced that her popular policies and her popularity with the people would protect her from being forced to abdicate the throne. However, the public was silent and they did nothing to protect her. The Roman people had abandoned her, after she had devoted so much for them. She acknowledges that she had made an error in judgment in relying on the people. Still, Nero did not resent them, instead she was saddened by their lack of uproar. It was my greatest error to love them in a way that they could not understand. She eventually decided to kill herself, though such an end was considered unsportsmanlike by her. She stopped herself many times, having cried about, how can such a magnificent artist disappear from this world, but as those who betrayed her closed and she quoted a line from Homer's Iliad, "Hark, now strikes on my ear the trampling of swift-footed coursers," before finally stabbing her own throat with a knife. After Nero's suicide, a soldier delicately wrapped a cloak around Nero's body, too late. "This is fidelity," Nero said. Those were her last words. Appearance. Nero is often called Red Saber, Aka Siba, to distinguish her from other sabers. She is a blonde-haired young girl of short but curvy stature with pale skin, yellowish blonde hair with intake and bright lime green eyes. She dresses in a revealing red and white dress with long poofy sleeves, a transparent front, leotard, and knee-high golden armored boots. Nero normally ties her long, flowing hair into a complex bun. She has a great resemblance to another saber, King Arthur, though there is no blood relationship between them. King Arthur was said to be a fusion between two individuals, one of whom was the Roman general Artorius, so there is some form of a link. Self-styled, cross-dressing beauty. She appears in a Santa outfit as Saber Santa, Siba Santa, in the second Type Moon movie A's second episode. Ball dress of rose, Bara no Budo Fuku, is the default dress that Nero wears. Who typically appears dressed in a military-styled red dress with a translucent portion in the front of the lower skirt. She claims the dress itself is not see-through, but rather she is letting people see. Bondage bridal gown, Sokubaku no Hanayom Isho, is Nero's bride outfit in Fate/Extra CCC, earning the nickname of Bride Saber, Yom Siba. With a whole new get-up, the Emperor of Roses wrapped herself in a pure white outfit. Due to the exchange of outfit, her tension has also changed and her combat style underwent a variation from its original condition. Even her favorite sword, Original Fire, has read the mood and converted its blade from red to silvery snow. Unshackled bridal gown, Kaiho no Hanayom Isho. Modern costume of crimson, Shinka no Gendai Isho, is Nero's modern frilly short dress. In Takeuchi original design, she had black stocking. Red Lightning, Akai Inazuma, is a sling bikini-type costume. Mythological mystic code of Emperor, Kodai no Shinwa Raizo, is Nero's last costume. Personality. Nero has a haughtiness that seems to more than compensate for her short stature, overlapping much with the personality of Gilgamesh. She refrains from asking how privileged Hakuno feels by summoning her, and grants them the honor of being her master. She feels that, as her master, they can be allowed to act as her equal without having to use honorifics. Often when given the choice to answer to her, only a single affirmative choice is offered rather than allowing for a negative response. She believes that anything she does must be perfect down to the smallest detail, such as a number of flawless victories to make her feel on top of the world after displaying perfection in her swordplay. If Hakuno denies to be her master, she claims she cannot understand what they are speaking about, believing it to be some form of oriental humility. She refuses to accept the answer, and declares that her tolerance allows for a single mistake from them. When recounting the servant classes, she names some, and then claims that the rest are not of any importance. Only the saber class has any worth, and as it is known as the best of the classes, it should be obvious that she is Nero. Nero has a different definition for love as she understood it. According to her, her type of love was selfish. When she gave it, she expected something in return, for it was not unconditional. To Nero, the more tender type of love was foreign and incomprehensible. She acknowledges that she has a different value system than the people. Nero's love burnt out, offering and devoting everything. Her passion burned brightly, without regards to permanence. Nero loved her citizens as she thought was right. But, the love her citizens proffered was different, and the difference invited Nero's fall. Nero regrets that she could not share in the love that the masses embraced so naturally. Because she could not express her love in a way that can be understood, she did not receive love in return. While this woman could love more than any other person, she could not experience the joy of being loved. Her lavish expressions of love were not enough to satisfy her people. The thought of dying without anyone loving her could be one of the reasons why she hesitated pushing the dagger into her own throat. She identifies herself as being short, but claims it does not matter in determining superiority. As she does not mind it, she firmly believes others should also not mind as well, and declares that no comments about her height, especially the terms petite or short, should be made. She finds being addressed as princess to be an insult because she is a grown woman, and instead prefers to be addressed as empress by her enemies. She gives off the impression of a valiant young man in crimson, and she has a masculine bearing and tone of voice, leading Hakuno to think she may have been raised like a boy. She acknowledges that the reason she wears men's clothes is not that she is trying to project an imperial image, but because she actually enjoys wearing men's clothes. While her brusque attitude and gallant actions would imply that she values valor above all, she actually identifies her core as a maiden due to her adoration for beauty. She still does not allow gender to sway her preferences, and believes the true orientation of her soul to be half and half. Firmly routed in the middle of the two genders, she personally finds her ability to go either way admirable. She becomes attracted to Hakuno regardless of their gender, and eventually even declares her love for them. She often refers to her master as praetor, which was a title granted by the government of ancient Rome to men acting in one of two official capacities, the commander of an army or an elected magistrate. She comes to develop feelings for Hakuno, and discloses her true identity to them for that reason. She is worried about the negative connotations that come with her identity, and does not mind if she is called a tyrant or the whore of Babylon by them. Even if she is disliked, she will simply work hard to become worthy of Hakuno's love and take their heart. While she claims to be able to endure the pain, she looks like a child who is trying really hard not to cry while stating it. Arts. She feels she is an artist before an emperor, truly thinking that she is the pinnacle of the arts and an artist who rivals the god of arts Apollo. Citing it as her true calling, she boasts various accomplishments, such as writing and singing songs, painting, sculpting, writing, fashion design, architecture, acting, and metalwork. She cherishes the theater the most, but still prides herself on the rest of her works. She feels that only through art can she express what she feels, as she finds it difficult to do so in a normal way. It was said that in her final hours that she expressed her anguish that an artist such as herself had to die. Her main concern was that her act of suicide was punishing the public by having such a magnificent artist disappear from this world. She is sensitive to praises and can be quite easy to manipulate when flattered. She claims to have been popular, citing a small girl laying a crown of flowers upon her head after returning from a triumphant battle, even though that has all to do with her being an emperor. She acknowledges that not all of her works were masterpieces, but thinks some of them were quite good. She knows that not many people appreciated or understood her artistic talents, but simply suggests that her critics were not advanced enough to understand her artistic vision. She claims she mastered it all in the name of art, so even if no one valued them, she was satisfied just having them made. She was able to express her love for her people through her works. She eventually decided that no one understands genius, so, having grown accustomed to the public lacking understanding in her art, decided that faith in herself is enough. Despite her humility, she does not like to be criticized, and will go to great lengths to protect her artistic integrity. They were panned by her friends, and she was once told, "We are friends and I support your government, but I cannot understand 80% of your art," by her dear friend Tacitus. She almost murdered him in an outburst of rage afterward, but managed to stop herself. She would often perform for the masses at her Domus Aurea, but spectators would frequently leave midway through her performances. She was so enraged by this obvious act of disrespect that she ordered all entrances to the theater to be sealed, forcing the audience to sit through her entire performance until the final curtain fell. She praises beauty above all, stating that beautiful young boys are good. Beautiful young girls are better. My singular preference is beauty. She greatly expresses a desire to fight Greek heroic spirits like Atlanta, because of their beauty. She has a certain fixation on Heracles, causing her to create a legend after publicly strangling a lion with a rear-naked choke in an attempt to emulate him by reenacting his exploits. While she was trying to prove her own might was as great as that of Heracles, her citizens were left unimpressed by the display, and attempting to view Heracles as a rival causes the protagonist to think of her as a megalomaniac. She felt the achievement could potentially have been surpassed by Hakuno if they had been in a public coliseum upon defeating a large number of rare enemies. She likes beautiful speech, commenting that Hakuno speaks with few, but beautiful words when she was first summoned, either that or she is greatly unconcerned with their laconic speech. Emperor. Her characteristic anecdote is that she was an administrator for the citizens. She believes herself that she was a tyrannical emperor who injured the lives of many and met an ugly end. She does not deny that is the truth of her rule, but she is not ashamed of it either. While she has regrets about her life and moments where she went too far, she feels all that matters is that she was true to herself in everything. She is not one to cave to others' assessments, but she values the opinions of Hakuno. She doesn't like to be directly called a tyrant, even by her master, and while the assertion is true, she would rather be thought of as an earnest emperor incapable of separating business and pleasure. It makes her slightly angry, but she quickly calms down once her position is understood. She claims that even a poorly regarded emperor is still an emperor, and that she will defend her master proudly as the best of servants. Due to her legend, others, such as Gawain, refer to her as the whore of Babylon, Babiron no Yafushi, as an insult. She has great pride in herself and her actions. Even though she does not wish to give her name, simply being asked about it brings her great happiness. She claims that it is the pleasure of those with regal natures to dignify the queries of those around them with answers, and gets so caught up in the mood that she almost gives her birth name without even thinking about it. She feels that she must always speak with the air of an emperor, speaking according to her parents' expectations of her in childhood and how she was raised. She was never allowed to speak plainly since leaving childhood, and speaking casually would be denying what she has become, throwing away all that to which she has devoted herself. While doing so would allow her to regain her humanity, she speaks with certainty that such a day had never occurred and will never come. She lived a luxurious lifestyle. She voices her disappointment over the scenery of the underwater arena, exclaiming that view it offers simply looks too much like the aquarium she owned during life. She has no direct interest in monetary gain, but admires the trappings of wealth and believes that treasure cannot be ignored. Abilities. In life, Nero was a megalomaniacal emperor who viewed herself as rival to Heracles. One of her legends tells how, wishing to prove she was as mighty as him, she strangled a lion, while nude, in front of a public. Although Nero claims that she snapped its neck, in truth, she only managed to make it faint, which according to her is victory enough. Nevertheless, taking into account that the bones of a lion are rather solid, along with her lithe, slender body, and that she accomplished this feat before she became a heroic spirit, there is no doubt that Nero was an ancient pro wrestler. She would normally not be qualified for the saber class with her parameters, however she took care of that part somehow thanks to her imperial privilege. It is said that those of the saber class are far superior to other servants. Thus, it is obvious that she would make anything in her power to manifest as such. She would be more suitable as a commander-type servant. Throughout a large part of the Moon Holy Grail War, Nero could not access her full power. Due to Hakuno Kishinami's deficiencies as a pseudomagus, Nero was unable to manifest her full glory. Although all of her parameters are an extremely low E rank at the beginning, with Aoko's and Tuko Aozaki's help they gained a medium growth rate. By performing an alteration of the soul, Aoko was able to link Hakuno's and Nero's souls. Through Hakuno, they are able to modify Nero's magic circuits, so that as long as Hakuno increased her rank as a master, they would be able to strengthen their link by hacking into each soul and choosing what to improve. Sculpting their spiritual bodies maximizes the flow of magical energy from master to servant. Following Hakuno's example, Nero also decides in the 4th week to increase her mana consumption through improved skills. Her power ripens as a result, but she still expects to receive a tithing of items from Hakuno's hands. Combat. She wields a scarlet long sword called Estus Estus, the original flame, Gensho no Hai Sudasu Esutusu, localized as Estus Estus, the embryonic flame. It is a handcrafted crimson sword, made from meteor metal, brought with her when summoned under the saber class by a master. It has the following inscription carved on it: Regnum Silorum et Gehenna, the kingdom of heaven and hell. She feels it is the ultimate instrument, and that muses would bow before the sound it makes. A noble phantasm is the symbol of a heroic spirit. Thus, using it would disclose Nero's identity. Though out most part of the Moon Holy Grail War, Nero refused to use her noble phantasm due to this, and the lack of a big magical energy supply. Although it would be usable in time, Nero was reluctant to expose it on those she considers small fry in the first few rounds. Even with this disadvantage, Nero is surprisingly strong, being able to defeat most of her opponents who did use their own noble phantasms against her. Although Rin Tosaka had initially assumed that Hakuno Kishinami and Saber had relied on a really potent noble phantasm to defeat Francis Drake and her Golden Hind, learning this made her rethink her opinion of them. Against stronger opponents such as Lu Bu or Ku Chulain, Nero is greatly outmatched, forcing Hakuno to boost her with a command spell just for them to survive. This is enough for them to hold their own for a round, long enough for the SEE.RA.PH's forced termination to activate. In the 5th week, Li Shuwen is said to be their strongest opponent thus far, due to the overwhelming difference between the two. Even when Li Shuwen restrained himself while fighting them by forcing himself to only use a total amount of 3 strikes throughout the entire fight, Nero is barely able to hold her own against him. With Rin's help, they were able to reveal Li's presence with an anti-spirit trap which nullified his sphere boundary skill that made him invisible. Even then, Nero estimated that she would very well lose in their final confrontation. This was not due to Hakuno's fault, who had matured sufficiently by this point, but Nero's. In order to defeat Li Shuwen, Nero needed her full strength, her noble phantasm. When Nero fought Gawain for the first time, they were left struggling for breath, having to thank SEE.RA.PH's intervention for their lives. His power surpassed even Hakuno Kishinami's expectations. Even though Hakuno and Nero had overcome a lot of powerful enemies, such as Li Shuwen and Lu Bu or Ku Chulain and Arcuade Brunestad, Berserker, it was beyond their capabilities to make even a scratch on Gawain's silver armor. Skills. Class skills. Magic resistance, C rank nullifies minor spells consisting of chance of 2 versus or less. Cannot defend against large-scale magecraft such as great magecrafts and ritual spells. Because Nero herself has a negligible resistance to magic, the effectiveness of this skill is pathetically low, even by the normal standard of the Saber class. Riding, B rank the ability for riding. One can manage most vehicles and beasts with above-average skill, but they cannot manage beasts of the mystical beast and sacred beast rank. Nero's field of expertise is with chariots, but given that her but gets sore when riding them, said person is avoiding them when she can. While she is a skilled charioteer that rivals the solar deity Sol, she feels that she would not be suitable for the rider class because of her general dislike for them. Personal skills. Migraine, B rank a curse that was inherited from her place of birth during her mortal life. As a result of the crushing headaches inflicted by this condition, the effectiveness of mental skills decreases considerably. Due to having this skill, it is difficult for Nero to perfectly demonstrate even her valuable talent for the fine arts. Imperial privilege, EX rank with the person themselves asserting that they have it, even skills that are essentially unable to be possessed by them can be acquired only for a short time. The relevant skills are riding, swordsmanship, arts, charisma, tactics, and so forth. In cases where the rank is A or above, even those that are a burden to the body, such as divinity, can be acquired. The compatibility between this skill and Nero, with her passionate soul, is extraordinary. It could be said to be the ultimate unfair advantage, but it could also be called a form of vanity. The Roman emperor was no different from the gods. All skills converged at Rome, no, converge at the emperor. If the emperor called white black, then it was black. However, even so, one could not acquire skills without basis. Since Saber was a polymath with ample curiosity, she had experience in most of the skills. Let's say one day Nero decided, I can pilot a jet. It is nothing, just adjust the plane according to altitude, not too different from the jet chariot I invented. And just like that, she would figure out how to pilot the plane. But because of her short attention span and headache, she would soon forget what she learned. Invictus Spiritus, thrice, even though I welcome the setting sun, a rank Invictus Spiritus, unconquerable spirit. A skill born from the anecdote of Emperor Nero's last moments. 3 days after Nero committed suicide, a Roman soldier discovered her. The soldier felt that Nero's end was pitiful and covered her remains with a cloth, and at that moment, it is said that Nero opened her eyes for just a brief moment and thanked the Roman soldier. Noble Phantasms. Her noble phantasm is unavailable to her for a number of rounds in the war. It is Estus Domus Aurea, she performs 3 powerful strikes and implants her sword into the ground, thus activating it. It is an absolute imperial zone that resembles a reality marble and allows the owner to achieve their aspirations. It boosts Saber's parameters and negates an opponent's defense, though its true effect as a phantasm is unclear.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.